All right. Well, hey, guys, this is so cool, man. We have the opportunity today to be blessed to sit just for a few minutes with Ruslan, KD. And many of you guys are going to know him from his incredible YouTube following. And, man, from what I've read, I didn't realize it was this kind of old, but you guys have been doing this for a long time, over a decade, well over a decade, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was professionally doing music from 2015 to 2021. That was like my main thing. And then end of 2020 is when the YouTube took off. But I had been uploading, I'd say fairly consistently for about 10 years, like really consistently since 2019. I think 2019, I released a video a day. So yeah, pretty
Hey, man,
consistent.
a mutual friend of ours always tells me, Larry Osborne, he says, it takes 15 years to become an overnight success. So that sounds like maybe what...
Ain't that the truth, man? Yeah, Pastor Larry is sharp, and yeah, a lot of stuff appears like it's quick, but it's not. It's
I
slow.
know. Yeah, every day since 2019. I mean, that, it's just the grind that then ends up producing. Well, you guys are having a huge impact, and man, a lot of people that are hearing this from our congregation at Mercy Hill Church in Greensboro, North Carolina, are going to already have known you guys. What I would love, though, man, first, Ruslan, is if you could, for people that are new, give us the 1-minute version of the blessed life, man, or blessing God. I mean, the idea of bless God, that type of life, and what you're kind of going after. What's the heartbeat of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I would say living a life that blesses God is ultimately about stewardship. And it's ultimately about saying, hey, Jesus has done so much for us while we were still sinners, while we were still far gone. He comes on a rescue mission, lives the life we couldn't live, dies the death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sin. And now we are released to then also be ministers of reconciliation. Now we get to go out into the world, and we don't just have hell insurance and we're just waiting for him to come back, but we actually get to usher in heaven on this side of eternity. And that looks like living a life that honors God instead of just being obsessed with what can we get from God and how can God bless us. We're saying, hey, how can we live a life that blesses God? It's anchored in Luke chapter 2, where Simeon is in a temple. He encounters baby Jesus, and it says that he blessed God. And so it's just a lifestyle of full holistic worship and submitting every area to our lives to God.
Man, I love that. And this is funny. In our family devotion, even this morning, we talked about the parable of the talents. Mm-hmm. And, just that idea of it's funny, man. I in our stream, a lot of times people talk about stewardship, but I think ironically what they mean is the exact opposite of stewardship. Mm-hmm. What they mean is like not deploying, like, hey, we want to be good stewards, so let's kind of like hold back and be wise and sit on the talents and even money that God has given us. When you actually look at the parable of the talents, it's about deploying those things. Mm-hmm. Man, what has God given you to be deployed? Because we are ambassadors of Christ, as you said, and so I appreciate you mentioning that. Man, what we want to do with this is we want to get your thoughts on and I want this to go wherever you want it to go, man, but I got some prompts. The idea is culturally, what does it mean to contend for the faith? Jude 3. We're going to be in a series called The Struggle, and it's another way to say that idea of contend. And it looks like, following the truth and staying away from false teaching. What does that look like in our age today? And so, man, right off the bat, just throw it out there to you. When you hear, and I know in your world, do a lot of apologetics, interview a lot of these guys. This is an impact y'all are making. That contend for the faith is probably a pretty rooted idea for you. What comes to your mind when you think about contending or struggling for the faith that was once delivered to all the saints?
Yeah, I think it's overall having a temperament where we're willing to be in the world, but not of the world. We're willing to engage people right where they're at without coming down and compromising who Jesus has made us to be. And I think there's been so much pull and push on Christians in today's climate, with the political sphere to social media to the economical times. Like everything that's going on seems to be trying to pull and push Christians in different direction. And so I think it's ultimately about being anchored in Jesus and then being able to give an answer for whatever it is that people have and are wrestling with in today's climate, as that passage you pointed out points to.
Yeah, in Jude, the Bible talks about those who have crept in. And have infiltrated, the faith. Now, I want to take this in two ways. I think to be most faithful to the text that we're going to be preaching through in the book of Jude, these are people that are coming into the church. But let's zoom out from that for just a moment and just say, Ruslan, from where you are and the work that you do, I mean, the amount of media and speaking engagements and young people and colleges and just all of that, what are some of the biggest things that we've got to continue to struggle and contend for the faith in? And another way of asking that would be like, man, what are some of the bigger areas of deceit and false teaching that we're wrestling with as a culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I try to break it down using simple language that I think will hopefully help people understand. I think one extreme that we've seen within the last couple years has been a form of liberalism. It's been, hey, we're going to creep in and everything is going to be meta-modern. It's not even postmodern anymore. It's meta-modern. And so subjective will is ultimately what rules. There is no objective morality. There is no God. My truth is my truth. Your truth is your truth. That's been, I would say, prevalent within the last 5 to 10 years. But it seems like there's been a shift and things have kind of went away from hyper-liberalism. That still exists to a certain extent, but the culture seems to be shifting from liberalism to potentially, and we see this in church circles, but I feel like I'm starting to see this outside of church circles, from liberalism to legalism. And by legalism, I mean a intense death purity spiral that if something's not perfect, it can't be good. And so we're seeing this displayed within many Christian circles and within many, I would say, like right-leaning circles, where we're seeing a form of Christless conservatism that's also creeping in. So we have these two extremes. One side is hyper-liberal, do whatever you want, follow your heart, follow your passions, you're your own God. The other is a hyper-legalism where everything is coming down to rules, and if you don't agree with me on everything and you don't align with me on everything, then you are far gone and you're irredeemable. And so the truth is that Jesus is neither for legalism or liberalism. Jesus is for liberation. Jesus is here to liberate us from our sins and to help us walk in freedom in that area. And so I think those are the two extremes I've been seeing, and I'm seeing more of the legalism now.
Man, I would love for you if I could just double click on this, that term meta-modern, because by the time I was coming through seminary, a lot of the guys, and I came through an apologetics track, and a lot of those guys were talking about, man, we were in a post-modern kind of idea. I think it may be similar to what you're talking about, but
yeah.
What are some of the hallmarks? Because we still see this. I mean, we still see it, the effects of it all over. What are some of your thoughts around, that side of it? How would you decipher between postmodern and where we are even now, beyond that, beyond postmodern?
Yeah, so I'll just define meta-modern real quickly for us. Metamodernism is a cultural and philosophical movement emerging after postmodernism. It seeks to integrate aspects of both modernism and postmodernism, oscillating between seemingly opposing concepts like sincerity and irony, hope and skepticism, unity and plurality. And so I think the way I could define it is that postmodernism and metamodernism diverge between hope and skepticism, right? And so if you think about postmodernism, there was more hope. They were trying to usher in a utopia, right? And metamodernism is hyper skeptical, and the system needs to be destroyed, and everything is bad. And so that would say the tension is between that. And so it's like everything you're perceiving isn't accurate, and therefore you need to be hyper skeptical about everything.
Man, that's great. Let's talk about this Christless conservatism you mentioned, and the legalism on that side. That pendulum swing. So right, this is kind of maybe we're swinging over. What does that look like in the real world? Like what do you feel like you see in real world, and take it out of the philosophical realm.
Yeah.
And let's just what does that look like when it walks around in the world? Because I bet a lot of us struggle with that. I bet a lot of that has crept into the church, as Jude says.
I think the easiest way I could define how it looks in the world, and yes, many of us can easily slide into it, is it's most often exhibited by all or nothing thinking, where everything has to align with your paradigm or it's bad. And so we would call another way to describe this is like the death purity spiral. So unless something is perfect, it can't be good. Unless someone agrees with everything I say and all my views and the minutiae of them, then therefore they're cast label on them. Right. And so that would be how this is exhibited in today's context, is people will then need to agree with you on everything. And if you're slightly divergent of whatever position they have, then you're discarded and you're no longer on their team.
So one of the ways we talk about this, let me ask you if you would agree with this or not. It seems like we're increasingly losing the ability to agree to disagree, and I only mean that in what we would define as closed-handed issues. So, we're not gonna just, hey man, we're gonna agree to disagree on the deity of Christ, right? But we probably need to have an air of humility and agree to disagree on maybe the end times theology. Or maybe even something in the practical realm. Like, one of the examples I always bring up is, man, are charter schools good for public education or not? Certainly I have an opinion on that. My child goes to one. But my thought is, can someone disagree with me in that and I still sit in the same small group with them? And it feels like are you saying that feels like we're having a harder and harder time doing that?
Yeah, I mean, name the issue, name the polarizing issue, name legal immigration. Can we have legal immigration? Is that a good thing? That was a massive blow up all over social media just a couple weeks ago between people coming over on legal visas. So we're not even talking about legal immigration. There's infighting within legal immigration versus and should America be viewed as this sort of nation or this sort of like a melting pot or a white nation? Like these sorts of things are prevalent and they're happening like more and more frequently. And again, it comes down to an all or nothing thinking, which at its core, all or nothing thinking is a cognitive distortion rooted in usually some sort of anxiety induced trauma or some sort of mental health issue. So meaning if you're constantly in a pattern of all or nothing thinking, that's usually rooted to some sort of distortion you have anchored to perhaps a mental health condition, or you have unresolved issues and you can only see the world in black and white. And again, there are some things to your point that are black and white. The deity of Jesus, black and white, right? Sin issues, black and white. But there are other things where, hey, we can talk about it and argue about it even passionately, but we shouldn't mark people and avoid them because they disagree with us on a social issue or a secondary doctrine issue.
Well, the book of Jude certainly addresses that, because you end up with people that have come in and they become dividers of the church. They sow disunity, discord. People want to line up on a side of this or that. One of the points that we want to make in this series that we're doing in Jude is one of the ways we guard against that, against the downstream effects of false teaching, is to constantly be going back to the truth, constantly be trying to focus on, man, the big truths of Scripture. What do you think about that? I mean, how, because you live in a world that a lot of times, it feels to me, and rightly so, man, we're defending the faith. I mean, that's what an apology is. That's what an apologist is in a lot of ways. And so I see the value in that. At the same time, what about just, what does focusing on what is right do? Focusing on the truth, how important is that? And I mean, I'm talking about hearing sermons. I'm talking about being in a good faith community. I was really encouraged in your bio that it literally says member of a local church. I mean, you take that very seriously. Like, that idea of, man, I need the truth in a stream that's coming into me if I'm going to defend against this stuff on the outside that's false.
Yeah, I mean, I think the local church is the body of Jesus in these different expressions that we have all over the world. And it is the institution that Jesus himself establishes is the church, right? The ecclesia. And so if we're not in a church and we're not consistently hearing the word of God, engaging with the sacraments, many people will just slowly drift if they're not consistently plugged in, anchored, and working these things out. I think the broader issue, I know you didn't ask this here, but I think the local church then equips us for the work of the ministry, as Ephesians points us to, right? And so here's the tension that I think we have within the legalism aspect is that we know what the things to defend against and we know what's bad out there, but we don't always have a better version or a better vision or a better story to tell. And so I'll give you like a really practical example, and this might poke is some people, and they might be mad with me, and that's okay, is if we're talking about something as simple as charity and generosity, right? A lot of Christless conservatism will know the things to guardrail against, like guardrail against liberalism and Marxism and all those things are bad. But who's going to care for the poor people? Like, who's going to care for the marginalized? Who's going to, and even sometimes talking about poor people, marginalized, caring for the least of these, people would instantly think that you're a liberal. And it's like, no. Jesus made it very clear that we are to care for poor people. We are to care for the marginalized. We are to be the hands and feet of Jesus on this side of eternity. And I believe there's an order and there's a hierarchy laid out in 1 Timothy 5 with the way the widows are supposed to be cared for based on their own families. It's a beautiful depiction of all that. But if we don't have a vision for how we are to engage with generosity, with caring for the least of these, then it will just be guarding against. But I think we also need to be known by what we're for as followers of Jesus. There has to be a vision for these things, unless we just become the people that are just against everything out there. But what are we actually championing? How are we building something better than what the world has presented us over and over? That's failed. We agree it's bad. It's failed, right? Secular humanism, bad. It's failed. It's a complete catastrophe. But we as Christians have the solution. It's in Scripture. We're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus on this side of eternity. And I think we need to be more equipped to do the work and also tell that story and cast that vision.
Yeah, and you guys are that's so good. I mean, because we all can fall into this, like, man, just hunker down and kind of preserve what is, and don't let your kids see this or that. I mean, we can all kind of get into that, but you guys are really specifically trying to combat that. I saw one of your videos, got tons of engagement by just asking the simple question: what if everybody waited till they were married to have sex? Unless I'm reading it wrong, it's kind of what you're saying. It's like, hey, let's paint a better picture of what God's design. What does it mean for humans to flourish? That's kind of what we're trying to get at. And I mean, that's kind of the heart behind, even that particular video, right? I mean, is that what you're trying to do? Like, let's show what human flourishing is.
Absolutely. I think if we look at God's laws and God's ways as good and designed to help us flourish, then it shifts from, this is oppressive, this is bad. But we say, no. God has an order and a way that he wants us to do things. Marriage is one of those things, right? Delaying gratification, which, by the way, is one of the huge key indicators for success in any industry and anything that anyone wants to do, is the ability to delay gratification. And God says the thing that matters the most, right? The thing that is going to impact every aspect of your life the most, which is your marriage, we spend the least amount of time creating systems and structures for. So if you want to go drive a car and you're a teenager, guess what? You got to go to driver's ed. Then you got to go, get a permit. Then I don't know how it is there in North Carolina and California. You can't have anyone in the car with you for the first 6 months. You get your license. Then a certain, right? And so there's an order and there's a structure. But we think that the most important thing, which is who you marry and having children, we think that this is just going to come intrinsically to us and everything is just going to click and we're just going to know how to be good spouses and good parents. And it's like, no, like, we have to be equipped for these things. And God has a whole lot to say about sexuality and has a whole lot to say about family. And we just think we're just going to figure it out on the spot, on the job training. And it's like, yeah, some of that maybe, but man, get connected, be around some people that are a season or two ahead of you, go through a premarital class, set some boundaries with the person you're dating, protect them from being sexually immoral, because you would want that. If that's not your spouse, you would want your spouse to be protected from that, right? And so I think when we think about these things, then it's like, oh, there's actually an order in a beautiful way that God has designed these things. And when we really look at it, something as simple as, hey, wait until marriage before you have sex. Why? Because it's good for you. Because the data shows that the people who have the most amount of partners end up being the least satisfied sexually. The people who have the most amount of partners end up being the most likely to get divorced. Oh, who would have thought God was right all along? Right?
Right. Yeah, totally, man. You're speaking my language on the car thing, because I have a 15-year-old. So we're going through.
So you're right in the middle of it.
I'm living that, man. But you're totally right. I mean, I think it's honestly, man, it's another way to. I mean, think about finances the same way. I was looking at one of the guys, Rabbi Lapin. He was like, hey, whether you're a believer or not, you should give, because giving does something to people that inherently build wealth. There is some component of giving that away that ends up contributing to it. Exactly what you said. It's like God was right all along, and I think focusing on the truth ends up guarding us against these different things. Now in the book of Jude, and maybe we'll start wrapping this up, man. In the book of Jude, we're not sure what the heresies were that were creeping in. But it seems like they were of the two. It seems like they were a little more on the liberal side in terms of morality. Mm-hmm. Hey, man, live and let live, and do what you want. And there's just this antinomian kind of spirit. I'm not totally sure about that, but it feels, the language feels like that. Other books of the Bible, it's way more on the legalistic side, which you kind of nailed. But on the free morality, God wants you to live a life that's fun, or just however. Specifically among our younger generation, because this is what I'm going to ask Sean and Wesley this too when I get a chance to ask them. Thinking about our college student generation, man, what do you think? There's a revival among our college students nationwide right now. They're rejecting something about that message. That is just, hey, go after your own happiness and you'll get it. It feels to me. What are some of the things you're seeing on the college campus? Why are people waking up now? Why are the kids waking up now?
I think there's so many reasons that they're waking up now. I think generally, I really believe that they've seen this experiment of let's make society more and more secular. And it's been a complete catastrophe because you remove God and you remove faith and you remove virtue and something worse rises up. And I think they're seeing that. I think they're going, oh, this isn't good. This is not what I want. I think some of them are also seeing maybe their older siblings or their parents and the way they've lived and where that's gotten them, right? And I think they're kind of like, if there is a God, seems like he's personal and seems like there's some order to it. And if he has some order, perhaps he knows a little bit better than I do about what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to live. And I think they're curious about it and they're leaning into it. And I think they're seeing it move. I think I read a stat recently where they said 48% of Gen Z is Jesus curious. That's a huge percentage, right? Where they're Jesus curious. They're open to Jesus. Bible sales spiked last year over, was it 14 million just through October, right? And so we're seeing data come out. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah. We're seeing data come out.
That's incredible.
And this is the cool part, right? So we're seeing Bible sales spike. And what's happening is then companies like Amazon, who, for good or bad, you can feel however you want about this, are the most data-driven company out there. They're seeing the spikes in these things. And so what does Amazon do? Amazon says, hey, Bible sales seems to be on the rise. This is crazy. We've never seen this before. We're going to put funding. We're going to put hundreds of millions of dollars behind Christian media. And now the top 2 shows on, not the top 2, but out of the top 10, 2 of the shows on Amazon right now are House of David and The Chosen. Right? And so okay, so Bible sales are up. Amazon is putting hundreds of millions of dollars behind funding more Christian media. Podcast appearances are exploding with guys like Wes Huff on Joe Rogan. We're seeing something shift in the atmosphere, and I think it's a beautiful thing. My challenge to the people watching this is that we as creators online and people who do this sort of stuff, which is super fun, and this is not me complaining, but we can't disciple people through screens. We really can't, right? Like the discipleship happens in the local church. The discipleship happens in the local community. And it often happens in your home, right? It's not in arenas. It's not in big gatherings. It's around tables. And that's the beautiful part about what the church can do alongside of all this is like, hey, we can provide great resources and podcasts and conversations and commentary and preaching and teaching and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, the church happens within local community and small groups and people doing life on life. I know you guys have a huge push to be in small groups and communities, but here's the deal. Like there's going to be more people that are going to be coming to your church. There's going to be more people flooding your church. The biggest people we see flooding our church, the demo we're seeing is like families in their 30s and 40s that came from the nuns generation, like the non-religious affiliated with nothing. And when I say they don't know anything, like they don't know anything. Like they don't know the difference between the Old Testament and New Testament. They don't know the books of the Bible. They don't know what chapters and verses are. Like they don't know anything. And so the pastors and the leaders of the church or the people online and the we can't disciple these people. You guys get to disciple these people. You guys get to welcome them into your home. You guys get to do life on life with them. You guys get to mentor them. And that's the beautiful part about all this is like God seems to be orchestrating something incredible. And it's not oh, I'm too old, or I don't know technology, or I don't know this. No. Like the young people in your church, the young adults, the college age, they need the next generation. They need the folks that are older, that are wiser, that have gone through life, to do life with them. And that's I think the opportunity that we have right in front of us is like, man, we can see something that we've never seen before, which is life on life, people of different generations. There's less cultural disconnect like there was in the Jesus revolution, right? In the late 60s. And I think that's the opportunity right before us. And are we willing to say, hey, I'll open up my home and I'll do life with some messy young adults and some messy folks that have never been in church, and walk through these things with them?
Yeah, man, we have some incredible multi-gen groups. They're not all multi-gen, but the ones that buy into that, man, it's a huge blessing. And I agree with you. I think that something of the end of some of the secular thought, what, you're talking about Jesus revolution, I mean, it ended up producing the divorce generation. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's a hunger there for family in a different way, now, because they've seen, like you said, they've seen the brokenness of what's at the end of that secular kind of road. And I don't know, it's just a thought. Man, really insightful from you. I have this thought in the book of Jude of like, what people were advocating, it seems like, and I don't want to speak definitively, in Jude is like, hey, Jesus saves you from, it's fire insurance, but you can kind of live however you want. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if some of what we're seeing on the college campus is a lot of that has been the message, and it's empty. And so it's like, man, I need a real truth. I need like a real Bible, like you're saying, the Bible sells. I need to go. Why are the churches that are willing to preach hard messages on the blood? And I mean, compassionately, but hey, this is what a family is. This is what the gospel is. Why are those churches that young people are flocking to? And so I'm interested in it. We're going to see where it goes. Ruslan, I want to give you the last word, man, but that was really powerful in discipleship, because that's so true. We disciple, for us, discipleship, word taught, life caught. It's very simple. You need both, man. You need relationships. You need the word. But we've really appreciated having you on. I'll give you the last word here, and then we'll jump off.
Yeah, I'm excited for what seems to be happening. I'm excited what we're seeing online, and I'm excited that we are connecting more and more with local churches. And if we can use our platform to get people connected to the local church, that to me is the ultimate win. Yeah. Like the ultimate win is people discover what we're doing. They discover a pastor that I interview, and then they end up in that local church, get plugged into a small group. And I think that's beautiful. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And so I would just encourage young people, get connected with some older people, get connected with some people that are a season or two ahead of you. If they got some gray hair, even better. That means they've probably forgot more than you've learned. Okay. So get connected with some folks that can do life with you. Older people, I would say, don't be too hard on this next generation. They don't all have TikTok brain. They don't have brain rot. Like, these kids love Jesus. They're hungry for Jesus. And I think most importantly, they're hungry to do life with people who also love Jesus. And I think if we see this multi-gen thing that you're describing come to fruition, I think it's going to be beautiful. And I think that then starts impacting not just what we say we believe, but really transformative impact of living a better story, of showing a better alternative than what's been happening. And that's what I think the world is desperately needing, is like, we've done the secular experiment. It doesn't work, but we need to be clear in that we have the solution. We have the answer to the issues, and it's all in Scripture. And that's the beautiful part. And so I'm excited for what's happening. And I would hope that whoever's watching this, that their call to action, in my opinion, I don't mean to speak for your behalf, that they would step in. They would step into what you guys are doing here.
For sure.
That they would step in. If they're not coming every Sunday, start by coming every Sunday. If you're coming every Sunday, start by jumping into a small group. Start by serving. Be a contributor, not just a consumer. Lean into what God is doing here, because that's His body, man. And we get to do life on life, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, that would be my encouragement to folks.
Awesome, man. Ruslan, KD, hey man, thank you so much for your time. This has been incredible, and we'll catch you around, man.
All right, thank you so much, brother.